So when we think of the great cities of Europe, we always think of Paris, London, Barcelona and Rome. But what about those lesser known cities? Well, in today's video, I'm going to give you a list of underrated cities and why you should go to them on your next trip in Europe. Now, some of the cities that I've listed on this video are very well known to us Europeans, but are lesser known to those who live outside of Europe. And what I want to do, for those of you who live outside of Europe, I want to show you these cities that you should definitely go and see. Because most of the time, people outside of Europe don't see these cities, and they absolutely should, because they're hidden gems. Now, these cities are in no particular order of best to last. These are all equal, and the first one that we're going to talk about is Budapest. Now, Budapest is the capital city of Hungary, and most Europeans know about how great this is, but outside of Europe, not a lot of people go to visit this beautiful city. But if you don't know of it, you might think, well, what is there to do in Budapest? Why should I go there? Well, Budapest is full of history, culture, and great food. And when you visit, you must go and experience the thermal baths that are scattered all around the city. But the most famous one is the Széchenyi thermal baths, and it's worth going to these thermal baths throughout the year. Possibly one of the most magical times you can actually go, particularly to Széchenyi baths, is in the winter, because they have two massive outside pools, and when you go in there and it gets very cold in Budapest, you get so much steam coming from the pools, and it's quite magical. And so this is one of the particular times you could go if you're not sure about what to see. With this, the architecture in Budapest is absolutely phenomenal, particularly around Fisherman's Bastion and Buda Castle. If you go to Fisherman's Bastion, you get a great view of the Pest side of the city. And with this, St. Stephen's Basilica, if you want for more culture, is one of the most beautiful basilicas you can visit in Europe. But if you're one for the nightlife, Budapest has you covered here. The ruin bars that are found in the Jewish quarter in Budapest are like nothing you will ever see in Europe. So after World War II, the city was absolutely decimated, and there was a number of empty, shelled, hollowed buildings. And so what they tried to do in the 90s is create something from these ruins, and they ended up creating these ruin bars. And in several of these buildings, you'll find a large open courtyard and a top-filled electric furniture, cocktail bars, music, and even an old stripped-down communist car to have a drink in. And all the rooms have different themes. One of the most famous ruin bars I'm just going to list here, and if you go to Budapest, you have to visit this one. So what about the price? How cheap is it to visit Budapest? Well, Budapest is one of the most cheapest cities you can visit in Europe. You can get a really nice high-level Airbnb for absolutely nothing. I'm pretty sure you can get a really nice Airbnb for about £20 a night. I'm just listing some of the prices that you can get in various Airbnbs in a really good locations in the city. It's really cheap to fly to from any other city in Europe. And if you want to know more about this place, I have made an in-depth video about Budapest as a city. I'm linking it in the description below and just above me right now for you to go and see after this video. Now, the second city that I'm going to recommend is really popular with us Europeans, but a lot of people outside Europe do not have this as a city that they should visit, and that is Amsterdam. Now, Amsterdam is the capital city of the Netherlands, or Holland, and it's an absolute must-see. The streets are beautiful, the architecture is amazing, and it has so much history and culture for you to experience. And so what is there to do in Amsterdam? So it has been known for a while to be quite a party destination full of stag do's, partly down to its famous red light district. But don't just see Amsterdam as a party destination. It's so much more than that. It has a number of great art and cultural locations you can go visit, particularly the art museum. Now, and when I went to see the Vincent van Gogh exhibit in the art museum, which was really, really fascinating. And one of the most moving things you can go and visit in Europe is to visit Anne Frank's house. For those of you who don't know who Anne Frank was, she was a young teenage girl caught up in the Holocaust in World War II, and her family hid in this house for a number of years, but they were betrayed, and unfortunately Anne Frank and most of her family were killed in concentration camps. And what's really, really incredible about visiting this is it is completely untouched, and it is like how it was left after the Second World War. It's particularly moving and is an absolute must-see for anyone who wants to pay their respects for those who lost their lives in the Holocaust. And then on a lighter note, there are some great little quirky places you can go and see, particularly one called the Sex Museum, which is a few euros to get in, and it is full of little bizarre things, but it's a great little quirky thing for you to do. Now, for those of you who want a little bit of a good time, there's also a lot of coffee shops dotted around the city, and these aren't coffee shops as we know them. They are full of weed or marijuana for you to buy it legally and smoke in the premises. It's a very big part of the culture in Amsterdam, so if that's something you want to experience, that is something you can do in Amsterdam. Now, the price of the city, being a capital city in Western Europe, it's not super cheap. But there are some things you can do. Obviously, you can stay in Airbnbs where you can find some good deals. But in Amsterdam, there's a hidden gem, which I think I found, which I'm going to share with you right now. There is a hostel that you can stay in that offers private rooms with ensuite. So it's almost like staying in a hotel, but this particular hostel is really nice. It's modern, has great buffet breakfast. You can stock up on food before you go out for the day and visit. And I've linked that in the description below for you to have a look at. Now, the third city that I'm going to recommend to you is Prague. Prague is one of the great Eastern European cities, and Prague has it all: history, culture, and great nightlife. Now, in Europe, and particularly in my home country of England, it's known as a bit of a stag do destination, partly down to its cheap alcohol and, as I said, great nightlife. But if this is not something you want to get involved in, don't worry, because Prague has something for everyone. Now, what is there for you to do in Prague? Well, the city itself is beautiful, and you can lose yourself walking through the streets, particularly around Charles Bridge, Prague Castle, and the big city square that is in the old town. And for those of you who are more adventurous, you can go shooting at an ex-Soviet army base. And there's a number of great bars and restaurants to suit those who are looking for a bit of a wild night out, and for those who are looking for a nice, calm, family or romantic meal. Now, one of the best things about Prague is the price. Much like Budapest, it's one of the cheapest destinations you can go and visit in Europe. And the food is really cheap. So if you're looking for a little cheap getaway, Prague is definitely a city you should have on your list. Although the city isn't that much of a secret to us Europeans, a lot of people who visit from outside of Europe tend to miss this city out, and it's such a shame, and it should be on your travel list. Now, the fourth city that I'm going to recommend is Zadar. Zadar is a small coastal city in Croatia. Now, lots of people who visit the Adriatic coast always go to Dubrovnik or Split, but Zadar is still worth a visit. Although smaller than Split and Dubrovnik, it has a number of things that you can do. Old town in Zadar, you can spend at least a day wandering around some of the castles, the churches, and the beautiful scenery around the city. There is some great food spots, great gelato, and it is a wonderful summer or spring getaway. And because it goes largely unnoticed by tourists, it can be really quiet in the summer months. Now, what is there to do in Zadar? Well, as I just said, you can spend at least a day wandering through the old town, and it's a great place to base yourself to take a day trip to Plitvice Lakes National Park, which is one of the most beautiful national parks in all of Croatia. And also in Zadar, the food is absolutely incredible, and I've actually done a more in-depth video about all the things you can do in Zadar, and I've linked that just above me right now and in the description. So if you're interested in staying in Zadar and want more details, I suggest watching that video after watching this one. But how expensive is it to visit Zadar? Well, if you go around June and May, it is really cheap. You can stay right in the old town for not a lot of money at all. And with this, the drinks and food are really cheap as well. So if you're looking for another cheap coastal getaway in Europe, I would highly recommend you put Zadar on your list. Now, the fifth city that I'm going to recommend is situated in my home country, and it's a city that so many people miss out, and that is the city of Liverpool. Liverpool is full of history, art, and culture. And due to its location, it's actually one of the cheapest cities to visit in the UK. Now, most people around the world have heard of Liverpool, partly down to one of the most famous bands of all time coming from the city, which is the Beatles. And if you are a Beatles fan, this city has to be on your travel list. You can go and visit the famous Cavern Club where the Beatles played well over 200 times, and Matthew Street, where a lot of the old music venues and a lot of the places the Beatles used to drink at before they were famous. And with this, you can actually go and book tours to see John Lennon and Paul McCartney's childhood homes, and a lot of them are just left as they were when they were living there, and a lot of their great songs and early great hits were written in these songs. So if you're a Beatles fan, that's one of the big things you are, but if you're not, it's still worth a visit. The city went for a huge regeneration about 15 years ago and is packed full of things to do. One of the most famous things to go and see is the Albert Dock. In the Albert Dock, you'll find a number of great restaurants and bars and museums, and just next to it you'll find the Liverpool Museum. Now, all these places to visit are actually free as well, so again, it doesn't cost that much. Now, everyone who visits London knows about visiting Camden or Shoreditch, which everyone knows as quite an arty part of London, full of London street art and stalls, whereas Liverpool has its own version of that, and that is called the Baltic Triangle. The Baltic Triangle is full of art dotted all around this area of the city, and it has a section full of loads of street food, great bars, and some antique shops, and has a lot of vintage and secondhand clothes shops. Now, if that's up your street, absolutely worth visiting. And alongside the Beatles, one of the things that Liverpool is most famous for is two famous football clubs that are situated in the city, one being Liverpool Football Club and Everton Football Club. Now, people go from all over the world to visit these stadiums, and you can actually go and do tours of the stadiums, go into the players' dressing rooms and see the pitches of Anfield and Goodison Park. Both stadiums are only less than a mile away from each other. They are situated outside the city, but it is very easy to get to. But again, it is worth a visit, even if you're not a football fan. There's so much other stuff that you can do, and in my opinion, it's one of the best cities in the UK you can go and visit. Now, what about the price of Liverpool? How cheap is it? And because it's situated in the north of England, it's actually quite cheap to go and visit. You can get a number of great Airbnbs right in the city centre for very cheap prices. If you're travelling to the UK and you're visiting London and you think, how can I get to Liverpool? It's really, really easy. There's a direct train that runs from London to Liverpool. It's about 2.5 hours, and it's really, really simple to get to. So if you can add it to your list if you visit in the UK, absolutely do. So they are my cities that I think are highly underrated. Now, I'm sure there's a number of people who can sit and scream at me and say, why didn't I say this city? Why didn't I say that city? Well, my channel is all about helping those people. So if you feel that I've missed out a city or some great places, list them in the comments below. Tell people about them. I want this channel to be a resource for people, to help people book their dream holidays or dream trips. And if you want to know any more about the cities that I've mentioned, please ask me down in the comments and I'll try my best to get back to you. I'm sorry that this video has taken quite a while. My uploads have slowed down a little bit. I've started a new job and I'm actually moving house as well. So there's a lot going on in my life at the moment, but thank you for those who are sticking with me and regularly watching my videos. I see your comments, I see your likes, and it really means a lot to me. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, give it a like, comment, just tell me what you think of it. It really helps me out, and I'm only a small YouTube channel, so any support I get really means a lot to me at the moment. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I catch you on the next video. See you later.